calls me the word Oriental. I am, however, offended if somebody calls me the F word, fat. Which is why I love the Yiddish word zaftig. I'm zaftig, it means I'm healthy. I'm juicy. Don't you love Yiddish? I love Yiddish. And that's why I love being Jewish. And that's right, I am Jewish. I'm actually queen of the Jews. I had mikvah, I had bat mitzvah, I teach Hebrew in 4 temples in my town in Bergen County, New Jersey, the center of the universe. And this is only interesting because my father was a very famous 100% Korean Presbyterian minister. My father, Baruch Hashem, lives in heaven now. He died 5 years ago, was the Billy Graham of Korean Presbyterian ministers. That's right. Well, you're looking at me like, Esther, what's the big deal? Welcome to the tribe. But if you were a famous rabbi and your kid decided to go the Goyim way, you would understand this, Shonda. But my father said to me, Esther, if you are the Jewish, you want to go to the heaven. I said, Dad, we all go to heaven. They're just different seating arrangements. My father said, Esther, how could you be the Jewish? You don't even look the Jewish. I said, Dad, of course I look Jewish. I look like every Yenta in my temple after a facelift. Ladies and gentlemen, Joan Rivers is looking a lot more Oriental these days than I do. In desperation, my father said to me, Esther, please reconsider. Look at the Jesus hang on the cross. What do you see? I said, well, I see a nice Jewish boy that looks pretty buff, Dad. Pretty nice heads, don't you think? A little like Lance Armstrong? Dad, have you ever seen Buddha? That's sloppy. My father said to me, Esther, please, run away from home. Now, the reason I am so crazy for Mah Jongg is my mother, the Oriental Tammy Faye Baker. Let me tell you, everybody, my mother loves makeup. I mean, kabuki players think my mother puts on too much makeup. But my mother was the portrait artist at the Fallsview Hotel. And every summer, my mother would pack up me and my 3 sisters, and we would go to the bungalow colony near the Fallsview. We'd stay all there. We'd stay there all, the whole summer. And I loved going up there because I would hotel hop. We would go to the Fallsview, then the Nevele, then the Homawag, then Kutcher's, then Concord. Oh, it was fabulous. Now, every morning, I would wake up and I would go poolside, and I would watch all the women play Mah Jongg. I want to tell you, I thought these women were geniuses. Because not only could they play this game, I thought at the time was impossible to learn. These women stayed at the Fallsview Hotel the entire summer. That's 3 months. Without their husbands. Genius. And these women never got up for anything except maybe, for at 5 o'clock when they went to dress to go to the, the dining hall and then see the show. It was always Freddie Roman, everybody. I mean, I saw him all the time. I could do his act. But anyway, but all the meals came to the table. Every meal, every snack, and these women taught me everything I know about food. For instance, the best taste on the planet is a slice of challah with a schmear of schmaltz. I spit on butter, it's schmaltz or nothing. With a side order of gribbiness. And then, of course, we would order stuffed derma. But we're not talking about the fakakta stuffed derma now, that's with the wax paper on it, that's fed. Okay, we're talking about the stuffed derma that's in the cow intestines. Sounds disgusting. Fabulous. Because it would come to us fried, so the cow intestines would be like really crunchy and crispy. Oh, I'm salivating. And then, of course, there was the Fallsview chicken. I'm going to tell you, if the Colonel had the recipe to the Fallsview chicken, he would have been a general.
Rosie Cow, Bella Gross, Gert Schiff, sometimes Pearl Lamazov, always Blanche Savitsky, my grandmother. Yes, if it was a Thursday night at the Covered Bridge Retirement Community for the 55 and over, Mah Jongg was the game of choice, and my grandmother was dumping the tiles. My grandmother was obsessed with Mah Jongg. And you can see why, really, because it allowed her to do the 3 things in life she enjoyed most: sitting around and kibitzing with the girls over cake and coffee, an engaging game, and of course it gave her the opportunity to pretend that she was Chinese, which she enjoyed a great deal. Now, obviously my grandmother couldn't actually pass for Chinese because her name was Blanche Savitsky and she looked like B. Arthur. But it was kind of interesting. Like when she started playing Mah Jongg, that was when, she wanted to be surrounded, as she would say to me, Dinala, all things Oriental. Because she loved it. Once she started playing Mah Jongg, she had to, of course, go out for Chinese food every Sunday and have her shrimp with lobster sauce and her poo-poo platter. She was kosher, but not outside the house. And, of course, when she got, really into Mah Jongg, that was when all the Spanish wrought iron stuff that was in the living room, I don't know if you remember that style, that sort of Castilian Spanish, all that had to go. She drove my grandfather crazy, and everything was replaced with this Oriental motif, Dinala, everything bamboo. And she loved it, and she actually created a very serene little Chinese pagoda, in her little house, with a Jewish guy named Sal Savitsky walking around saying stuff like, Blanche, where's the oleo? It's not healthy or tighten bunches. Whatever that means. In any event, no, but really, she was obsessed with Mah Jongg. The obsession began, I would say, in the early 1950s. My grandparents, they were this young couple. They had 2 small daughters. They wanted to buy their first house. So where did they end up but Hazlitt, New Jersey? And there were no Jews in Hazlitt to speak of. So they go and they meet with this real estate developer, and he shows them this plot of land. And you can see on the map the surnames of people who had bought these tracts of land where he was going to build houses. And there were no Jews, but for one street, on one street there was a Lazar, a Markowitz, and a Goldberg. And yes, there would be the Savitskys, because my grandparents bought a house on this street. And it was here that my grandmother learned to play Mah Jongg. And this is what blows my mind. On the nights that my grandmother would host the Mah Jongg game, she would spend the entire day cleaning the house. And then she would put out the nice guest towels and the soaps. And about 8 o'clock, the girls would come over. She'd put out her nuts and candy. And they would play from 8 o'clock until midnight. Sometimes she'd play 2 to 4 nights a week. I mean, she was really into it. They would play from 8 until midnight. And then at midnight, the men would come over. Do you remember the men? They would all come over at 12 o'clock midnight for cake and coffee. Which, it's mind-blowing. I know men in their 30s and 40s today, they're obsessed with washboard abs. Nobody eats cake, much less at midnight, but there they were, cake and coffee, 12 o'clock midnight. This would never happen. Or the men would leave the kids in the house and come down the block for cake and coffee. Excuse me, you could get arrested for that today. This is completely illegal, but this is what they did. The rule of thumb was the bigger the host, the fatter the host, the better the spread. So my grandmother, of course, she put out cake and coffee, but the lady across the street was a very large lady, and she put out cake and coffee and bagels and lox and whitefish and the whole spiel because everybody was coming over.